Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and welcome to our webinar where we're going to talk about AI in education and cybersecurity. So we will wait for about 1 minute and allow people to join, and from there we'll get our conversation started. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Hodges.
No, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the discussion.
All right, we will go ahead and get started with the discussion. So today we are starting a series where we're going to be talking to some of our most interesting and cool customers and clients. And I would like to introduce Dr. Hodges. So Dr. Hodges, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Yeah, so I'm currently a global IT and security compliance leader for Celestica. We're a global manufacturing company. Do a lot of work in the commercial and aerospace defense sector. But I also spent over 20 years in the military. And during that tenure, I was an Army cybersecurity officer. But I also think it's a little bit noteworthy for this discussion to talk about that I was also a distributive training technology project manager as a young lieutenant. And this was during a time that the military was actually they were experiencing challenges of how to make sure the soldiers got the education and training while deployed. So we had a lot of mass mobilizations during the early 2000s. And so it was then when I actually had an assignment of being a project manager, and I was working with contractors like Booz Allen Hamilton, and telecommunication providers to build DL classrooms to be able to enhance opportunities and use technology to not change the task conditions and standards of education, but also improve ways that we can still make sure that deployed soldiers and mobilized soldiers can continue to train and get education. And it was around that same time in 2004, I started teaching in higher education. So my first run in higher education was teaching overseas for Central Texas College. So I've been in higher education for about 20 years now, consulting, teaching, developing courses, and sitting on boards. And currently today, I still teach. I still sit on boards. I teach for the University of Maryland at a global campus as a professor. I teach for Southern New Hampshire University. I'm a cybersecurity lecturer for Fusion Cyber. They're partnered with a lot of HBCUs and companies like Cisco to work to close that gap between skills shortages in the cybersecurity framework. And I sit on different boards to include the board currently with FIT.
Wow, that's a quite the extensive resume. I almost feel shy going after you. My name, everyone, if you don't remember, my name is Nicholas Abram. I am a business development manager with DeepBrain AI. Definitely not nearly as decorated as Dr. Hodges here, but happy to sort of start this conversation with you and to kind of pick your brain and see what you think about everything with generative AI, education, and cybersecurity. So yeah, I guess I have a few questions for you. You mentioned that you're a very decorated, retired from the military. You've done a lot of education. You've done a lot of consulting and sitting on boards. What is your thoughts about the state of generative AI and cybersecurity and education today?
Yeah, so there's a gap between like the human intelligence and machine capabilities, and I think that gap is narrowed significantly in a lot of great ways due to AI. It gives us the ability to keep up with, and when I say it, I'm talking about AI. AI gives us the ability to keep up with rapid advancements in technology and security education. We can take these advancements, we can deploy them at the classroom level to the students instantly. There's a deploy to one to many, very fast, quick, easy, scale fast. And as long as I've been in education and as long as I've been developing courses, especially in higher education, there's a taxonomy to developing a course, from doing a basic course outline, writing that course out and seeing how you want the learning outcomes and the tasks and activities baked in between to map back to the program outcomes.
Mm.
A book, you got to read the book and make sure that the book satisfies those learning outcomes in the program. And then in cybersecurity and technology, is the challenge is at the competency level, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Will the students walk away learning what you need them to learn for the workforce tomorrow? By the time that taxonomy of developing that course gets done, and you present it to faculty senate, and it flushes around the democratic processes of higher education and academia, the technologies and the tools are deprecated and they change. And then the second part to that is there's a lot of books that are a mile long and an inch deep, but don't offer everything that you need in a course. So with AI, you have something called, the swarm of intelligence. How can I collect a lot of intelligence from multiple domains and contexts and dynamically create now a course, a dynamic book, or a dynamic video and make it relevant just for the course? How can I take that same course, that same video, that same topic, and keep it updated constantly for technology, where the students can get it instantly, they can get the changes instantly on a semester by semester basis. So, and I
Sounds like you found a solution.
So I see this a lot in cryptography. I've taught cryptography as an undergraduate course, brick and mortar,
Sure.
for Wilmington University. I've taught it as a domain for CISSP, for global knowledge. And one thing that I've seen is it's very rare that you get a book that will cover the core competencies and outcomes that we need. And so a book is generally 600 or 700 pages, a couple $100, but we can't get out of it what we need. So with AI, I can go get the information that I need. I can peer review it. AI can peer review me. I can go out and speak to other professionals. We can put it together in a video, put it together in a text, and we can keep it updated at a very fast rate. Something you couldn't do just a few years ago.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense. And so is that how you're using AI Studios currently?
Yeah, so that's exactly how I'm using AI Studios. So specifically with like AI Studios and DeepBrain, what I do is I'll clone my own voice. I'll talk to myself. I'll read a book. It can be a part of a book. It doesn't have to be cybersecurity. It can be a line, 2 lines out of Moby Dick, and I'll read that. I'll speak, and I'll clone my entire voice, and then I'll write text out exactly what I want to teach in a lecture, in a course lecture. I'll apply that to PowerPoint slides, and I'll make sure that it aligns with the current state of technology, the current state of security. And the same way the traditional classroom, when I'm in a classroom, there's a lot of features and there's a lot of disruptions that the classroom brings. If a student comes late, if a student leaves early, if a student's multitasking or talking on the phone, which this happens a lot. If a student misses class, I have students that will miss a lot of lectures or send an excuse why they can't be there. And I'll revert back to the cryptography example. Cryptography, I find, is very taxing intellectually. If you haven't done it before, if you're not familiar with it, if you miss 10 or 15 minutes of my lecture, you're going to be behind. At the same time, if I stutter over a word, if I have all these human elements involved, right? You ask a question, if I don't answer it, if you ask a question and another student interrupts you, these create distractions in learning. So by using like the DeepBrain platform and writing my text to speech, my clone of my own avatar, rather than taking a traditional YouTube video, which I see a lot of professors do, they'll send a student to a YouTube video that was created 5 years ago. It is a good learning tool, and those are good learning videos. But with AI, if you take the voice to text method and you clone your voice and you create the latest and greatest update, you remove all the problems with speed, the problems with accuracy, the problems with disruption, and you keep it updated. And I deploy it to the students and I tell them, if you fall asleep, if you come late, if you leave early, just hit pause, play again, go back and listen to it again. And next semester, if there's an update in security in one of the technologies, it could be a deprecated protocol, It could be how a PKI environment is being implemented. I just changed the text in that particular portion.
Yeah. Honestly, you're talking about distractions. I don't know. I feel like sometimes when I'm playing Subway Surfer, it helps me focus a little more, but I get it. I get it. And I think that's very interesting about the kind of deprecation part of education, because I know with a lot of kind of traditional education, a lot of the theories and a lot of the, methods are kind of set in stone, but especially with such a changing field such as cybersecurity, it must be very helpful to have information that you can consistently update with your tone, your manner, and everything like that.
Including speed, accuracy, durability, cost and efficiency, endurance, reliability, and
Yeah,
whether you're an education institution or whether you're a training institution, these are all important factors, not just for the business side, but also for the learner. Learners in today's environment, they want to learn, they want to learn fast, they want it to be productive. They don't want to go to a mile long and an inch deep on a course. They don't want to read a book that's 500 pages just to learn the differences between symmetric and asymmetric photography. So being able to scope out that course and being able to take away the disruptions. And I don't think that you'll get away from students being disrupted. I mean, and
sure.
they'll start coming with more devices. They're taking OneNote versus a journal. So these devices are going to be in their hand. Adults are learners, learners are adults. And so you got to provide a medium and you got to provide tools for them to be able to get your education anytime, anywhere, and listen to it again and again and again, just like a book.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right, let's switch the topics a little bit. So, thank you for sharing about kind of your process and how you're using AI within the field of cybersecurity and education. Just because you're an expert in this field, I'd be curious. What do you think is kind of the most promising, you know, technology that or generative AI is bringing? What do you think is kind of the most concerning aspects of generative AI when it comes to education and cybersecurity?
Well, so I mean, I think that education is going to experience the same challenges and risks, as you will, as any organization that's managing data.
Mm,
So for AI to work well, you're going to have to collect a large amount of data,
yeah,
vast amount of data. In order to make sure that Dr. Hodges is saying what he's saying is correct, you're going to have to be able to get that data from multiple domains, aggregate that data, and turn it into intelligence. And that's how these large language models work, is collecting a lot of data.
sure.
Um, so the implication is going to be privacy. That's the first challenge that I'm going to see. So where are you getting the data? Is the data normalized? Is it accurate? Is it correct? And then the second part to that, and we can talk on and on and on for privacy. Is where is it stored at? Who is sharing it? From a security perspective, I've looked at a lot of security tools, particularly GRC tools, and they're great at being able to tell you what AI says the solution is and the problem is. But I always wonder, when I start to put in the problem, am I going to share the problem about Celestica? And is the rest of the world that's having access to that large language model going to be able to know that now Celestica has a problem? Yes, we'll exploit that vulnerability. So these are all big questions and discussions that have to be had. The second thing that I see is accountability. Education, in all domains, even in military, we like to have accountability. So if in a physical world, if somebody does something wrong, there's an investigation, we're going to ask a lot of questions, and eventually somebody's going to fall from the top of the flagpole. In AI, a lot of these AI systems are working in a black box. If you get the data and it tells you, well, what do you do if you have a rash on your face? Well, you shoot yourself in the face. And if people start shooting themselves in the face, who do we hold responsible for that? If this AI box, if this AI tool is working in a black box and you don't know who gave you the answer, who was the medical doctor that told you that? So
Sure.
AI is really getting information from an expert and mimicking the human brain. And this has been
Yeah.
going on for a while. We're just really turning it into. So to come back to your question, if we can turn that into collecting small data sets and where it's going to be autonomous, where the AI system is going to make decisions on its own, whether it's giving you an answer or whether it's a robot making a decision for you. And we've been seeing this for years with security tools. We're seeing it more on the battlefield. But when it becomes autonomous, who's responsible and who's going to be held accountable for that autonomous decision? We can't blame it on a robot forever.
Sure. No, I mean that makes sense. I think that, these are some of the questions that we're also thinking about at DeepBrain. I know that, we, as a general rule of thumb, tend to try to, have the human element of, be as prevalent as possible. Um, whether it's how we're collecting data and how we're, training our models, everything we're doing is in-house. Everything we're doing is, with our own data. We're not collecting large data. And, when it
Right.
comes to kind of the responsibility and the accountability piece, that's why we've kind of built our deepfake detection software. Just, being like, okay, what is this generated media and what's real? So we definitely see these concerns as well.
And I would encourage folks to use those deep fake detection tools to their advantage because the adversaries, I mean, we spent the last 10 years teaching people don't click on an email. Okay. Don't
Yeah.
respond. Don't, the Nigerian scam email. It's going to get a more sophisticated, more complex, and you won't be able to detect it as much. So the tools that we have in place now in certain email systems to detect these scam emails and send some of them to spam, AI is going to find a way to tunnel and provide all kind of mechanisms to fool the IDSs and fool the AV systems and fool the spam detectors. And they're going to get really, really good at being able to bypass a lot of our traditional security tools that we've just now finally trained ourselves to say, hey, don't click. And so
Yeah. Yeah, I received a funky text from my CEO yesterday, and I knew, I was like, this is fake. So, moved it to spam, but it's just like, man, if I had seen a video of him being like, hey, I need you to do this, I'll be like, is this
yeah,
real? Is this not? So yeah, those tools are very important. Um, okay, let's change it up a little bit, because we only have about 10 minutes left. What advice would you give someone looking to either go into cybersecurity, education, take the military route? What sort of advice would you give to someone starting their career?
yeah, good question. And it's an important question. And it's one that I hear a lot, right? So, two things, right? We're in a data deluge right now. So, every day that you turn on the news, you hear something about cyber. If you're subscribing to alerts from CISA or from your vendor, or threat intelligence is growing, is growing, is growing. And you can't be good at everything. So, find out what it is that you want to be good at. Find out where you want to be good at, and try to master that art. Otherwise, you're going to become overwhelmed with data. Data's coming from every direction. CISA will send out a lot of alerts, but they're not going to send you the alerts on the security devices and on the infrastructure that you're responsible for. The second thing is that there's about 10 or 15 habits that require no intelligence. That requires no certifications. It requires no degrees, and it's collaborating, communicating, and having a little bit of emotional intelligence. And as these tools start to grow, as we start to use AI tools, and we will, because AI is the new Barnes and Nobles, it's the new bookstore. Why go to the library to get a book when you can get the information from any library in the country in seconds? We got to make sure that we keep the human element involved, and we got to make sure that we communicate and collaborate and share information just as fast as we're doing it sitting at the table for one another. But pick a domain. Don't try to master everything, and be good at that domain first, and then move to the next topic.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that here with the human connection. Go ahead.
I want to add one thing to that. I mean, I had a meeting with the head of global legal counsel for my company yesterday. Really, really smart guy, intelligent. And one of the things that we both agreed on is when we sit and we meet with other executives or other security leaders, the one thing that will stand out to me about the conversation is those that haven't read, especially in the cybersecurity field. So in this field, while there's a lot of discretion and a lot of risk management, it has to be done. Before you do any of that, read. Don't guess your way through it. And right now on LinkedIn, I see a lot of LinkedIn wars, is what I call them. But you can get away from the LinkedIn wars and spend more time reading and make more objective, risk-based decisions using the
Yeah,
AI model.
sure. And I'd love to hear what you mean about the LinkedIn wars, because that's the first time I've heard about it.
Well, so if something new comes out, if NIST publishes a publication, um, most recently you see a lot of information on 800-171 CMMC. If DoD publishes a new legislation opinion, what I see is I see a lot of individuals that will either skim or not read a document that are very quick to make an opinion on cybersecurity. And so there's a lot of risk that goes involved with cybersecurity, either looking at financial risk or reputation risk. But if you're
Sure.
closer to the flagpole protecting devices, you want to avoid making decisions and getting involved in those LinkedIn wars, because you'll get a lot of biased information. And so what I tell a lot of my students, read the documentation, read the book, okay, get the objective information, then form an opinion. Whereas the LinkedIn information tends to provide a lot of subjective biased information. It really hasn't been vetted. It's just an opinion, which are important, but they're less as important as reading for the cybersecurity professional.
No, that makes sense. Um, would you say that, some of the tools are such as, these large language models are good for like kind of giving you that intro to what the source information is, or do you still kind of stand behind reading everything 100% yourself?
No, I think so. That's a good question. So the answer is yes. I say that these tools are good, but data poisoning is a real thing, right? And
Yeah.
so if I use an AI model and I'm looking for information, I'm an academic, so my doctorate is in education. So I was taught from the academic world to do a literature review. And so I peer review a lot of stuff and I check the source of where I'm getting at. So when I start to subscribe to a large language model and I collect information, which I'm going to because I can get it very fast, quick, easy, and efficient, much faster than I could through traditional methods of research. I'm going to check it maybe against that model. So it's all about the arguments. So for the
Mm,
experts that know how to run arguments through a tool, you may want to run another argument and ask the large language model a follow-up question. No, what I meant was, well, can you go a little bit deeper on? And so you want
mhm.
to habit of doing a literature review against the question that you're asking the large language model, because they will make mistakes. Just like you can get the wrong book off the bookstore at Barnes and Nobles, and just like we're finding out now that there are tons of encyclopedias out there that were giving us wrong information 20 years ago, being able to make sure the information is correct before you apply it to the workforce, you can avoid shooting your face off because you had a scratch on it.
That's true. That's so true. And shameless plug a little bit, we do have the ability for you to upload those books right into AI Studios and make them a video. But
Yeah.
I hear you about just making sure you're really vetting your information, because that is extremely important, especially in the age of like AI where you can get so much information so quick. Making sure you're getting the right information, the right data is extremely important. So we're kind of coming towards the end of our session here. So I want to thank you again, Dr. Hodges. But before we go, I want to ask you one question, and feel free to expand on it as you need to. If you could use AI to solve any problem in the world, what would it be and why?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Like I said that earlier, right? That I learned as a lieutenant, the task conditions and standards don't change in
Sure.
education when we were implementing DL classrooms. And so one of the things that we have to do is we have to find a way to improve emotional intelligence for cybersecurity leaders up and down the flagpole, and laterally throughout the ecosystem. We have to improve communication. We have to improve collaboration. I do predict that as we continue to use AI tools and other technologies, that the goalpost is going to move further away for these habits that I say that requires no skill set, no degrees. And so what I'd like to see is that when we start to create these tools, our future AI systems will help us facilitate and improve sharing and collaboration of threat intelligence across these organizations and industries. Because my biggest fear is that the task conditions and standards of how you and I are communicating today on camera. As a professor, I teach, I do live lectures several times a week. 80% of my class won't get on camera. When I'm in meetings at work in the industry, many people, their cameras don't work. And so I want to see the goalposts come closer, not further away with collaboration and communication. I want AI to be a tool to help us enhance efficiency, speed, accuracy. I don't want it to take away those habits that I still think are necessary for us to survive the future.
Yeah, those soft skills are so important and often overlooked in our industry. So, yeah. All right, Dr. Hodges, thank you for joining us today. If anyone wants to learn more about you or connect with you or reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Well, I can say what not to do. Don't connect and put a cold note on LinkedIn. When I see an avatar, I won't accept it. Okay, so a kind note on LinkedIn to say, "Hey, I'd like to connect with you. I think we can collaborate." Always works. But if I see an avatar, I generally don't accept a LinkedIn request. And I do generally like to meet people in person at some point in my life. As I'm
Sure.
reviewing my LinkedIn requests, I tend to update and delete those that don't collaborate and communicate. But reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you again. My name is Nick. I'm DeepBrain AI. This was a webinar with Dr. Hodges. We'll see you soon next week where we'll talk with Alicia Shapiro from AInews.com. And we hope you enjoy. All right. Bye-bye now.
Thanks.